Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a beautiful day with the two new cars out for a drive. But what I'd like to talk about today is how it has come to be that these two cars are in my garage. I'd like to talk to you more about financing, about Shmee150 Finance that's launching right now, but also a bit more background, an open, kind of honest talk with you about how it is possible that I've managed to end up in this incredibly fortunate position to be driving these cars and sharing the videos with you. I'd like to say it is a very big thanks to you guys that have been part of this journey so far, but this is really the pinch moment. I still haven't quite taken it all in, and today I'd like to go into a bit more detail and talk about the Senna, the GT, and how it all works. This, of course, is one of the biggest topics, I know. How is it possible that these two cars have both arrived in the garage? Well, firstly, I'm going to say that it wasn't really intentional that they would literally come at the exact same time. That was complete coincidence. I applied for the Ford GT almost 3 years or so before it came, and I sent in my letter of intent for McLaren's next Ultimate Series almost 3 years before this came. So the fact that the two cars arrived in literally, well, for me, collection days were one night apart. They were on adjacent days was not necessarily something I planned for, certainly not in terms of the financial side as well. Now, I want to talk a fair bit about this because so many of you guys have asked me throughout the growth of my channel from back where it began, how is it possible that I've become in a position to drive the cars like this, or the supercars beforehand? And well, to give a bit more on my background, I guess, well, firstly, I'm in my 30s. I think some people think I look younger than I am, and I actually started work pretty much when I was a teenager, so I've basically been in work now for over a decade. The YouTube channel as well has been running for a decade itself, but it's also spawned a lot of other business opportunities off the back of it. So Shmee150 is, of course, what you see. The daily videos, pretty much all of the content that I've been making. I think in total nearly 4,000 videos now on the YouTube channel, but it's actually become a whole YouTube business off the back of what you see. For example, consulting, merchandise, branding, presenting things, going to meetings, doing all sorts of different things beyond purely making these videos. So that's become basically a whole business. I left my job around about 6 years ago now or so. Before that, it had been something that I was doing in the background, but not really my primary activity. I fortunately was in a position where my former boss allowed me to take some time off, to take almost a part-time type role, to concentrate on growing all of this, which of course has now become something that reaches tens of millions of people per month, if not hundreds of millions. So basically all along, I've been a big car guy. I've definitely pushed myself further than I should in terms of financial side assets tied up inside cars themselves, but of course that's what I love doing, that's what I love filming and sharing with you guys. So all along I've been financing cars and I've got myself through a whole different variety of cars along the way, through to the position that we're now in with these two unbelievable machines behind me, which, as I said, still feels completely unreal. I can't quite believe that I actually have the keys in my pockets to both of these cars and I'm able to drive them. It's totally bonkers. But this is basically where Shmee150 Finance comes in, working with Harrington Finance. It's powered by Harrington Finance, and we're going to be catching up with Alex, the founder of the company, later on to talk a bit more about how that side of things work. But loosely speaking, I was not in a position to jump fully in for both of these cars at the same time. I had to come up with a way to make that possible, to make that happen. Some of the cars in my garage are owned outright, for example, the 675, the GT8. Some of the cars are financed on a more traditional PCP like the AMG GTR, a car that I know I'm not going to keep long term. The Focuses are outright, of course, to do the modifications like I'm doing to the Red Edition Focus at Mountune. You pretty much have to own it outright. You can't quite do all of that because obviously a financed car needs to be in an appropriate resaleable condition at the end of the day, whereas that car has become a complete and utter project. But here in the UK, we have a system that I think is very favourable to financing these kind of cars. Of course, this varies massively depending where in the world you are in your personal situation. There are so many factors that impact finance. The other part of this to talk about is the running of the YouTube business. Like other people who are running companies or entrepreneurs or company directors and founders, there's a lot of work involved. Of course, shooting the videos is awesome fun, but I also spend a remarkable amount of time sitting on a computer, preparing, planning, and working on other projects behind the scenes. Of course, I'm not going to talk about everything and reveal everything because that is literally my business. It's my business model and it's what makes it all work at the end of the day. But it is a seriously hard job. It is 80 or 90 hours a week, a lot of traveling, very little time at home. The perks are amazing, but the workload is incredibly hard. Never underestimate what's actually involved in all of this. Now, there have been more than enough comments along the way, he says, as Alex arrives in a McLaren 600 LT, but there have been more than enough comments along the way about daddy's money, about all of this kind of thing. And I'd like to stress that my dad isn't a big fan of these cars. There is no way that he would be purchasing such cars for me. I can tell you that right now. This is all a result of the Shmee150 business and everything that I've done along my journey, my career path to date. It hasn't just magically happened or been spoon-fed to me, as much as I would love that to be the case. But that's what we're going to be catching up with Alex about very shortly, to talk more about the financing side of things. But this is a result of a lot of hours of work, doing a lot of, I think, pretty interesting things, and then here are the results. It's been worth every single moment of it so far. Alex, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Tim, and yourself?
Very good.
Excellent.
Great to see you.
Good to see you too. How you doing?
I'm very good, and congratulations on your new car, which is looking beautiful in the sunshine.
Thank you very much. Yeah, really pleased with it. Yeah, it's come out brilliantly, so
and
thanks.
I think regular viewers on the channel will notice that that is a car actually that we saw at Topaz, because it was being done at the same time as one of these two.
Pure coincidence, both cars were in there at the same time, and Topaz have done a terrific job as always on it, and yeah, the car's ready to roll, ready to enjoy some good miles.
This actually brings me on really interestingly to why you started Harrington Finance, because you're a bit of a car collector.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, big car collector, big car fan. So I set up my business, Portman Asset Finance, about 12 years ago with two people that are very dear to me, that helped me set the business up, and we're involved in traditional business asset finance, so and we've been very successful. But then more recently, about 18 months ago, we decided to move into supercar, classic car finance, to combine my contacts and knowledge in the asset finance world with my love of cars, and that's where Harrington Finance came from. And it's been really successful, company's growing really quickly, and it's really exciting times at Harrington.
And it's very exciting for me as well, as we move into this new partnership working together.
Definitely, yeah, really looking forward to it and can't wait to get started. It's going to be awesome.
And one other thing, soon to arrive in your collection.
Yes.
It's going to be one of these.
That's it, that's right. Yeah,
Senna is coming.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep it fairly quiet, but it's
oh, well, I've just ruined that. Cat's out of the bag, sorry.
A lot of guys know it works. So yeah, my Senna's coming hopefully April.
Yeah.
Chassis number 409. And I'm going for a pretty crazy colour. It's going to be Fistral Blue.
Okay, nice.
Orange accents. So these two cars will look pretty cool next to each other.
Blue Sennas are the way forward.
That's it,
have you ever been in one?
I've sat in a few. I've sat in one at Geneva. I've sat in a couple of Sennas. Never ever been in one that's
never been in one?
Never.
So, well, I was about to ask you which car we're going to go out for a drive in, but I think we've just decided we're going to jump into Senna then.
Definitely the Senna, please.
And take it out for a little drive, and we can talk more about how all of this is going to work, what we're going to be doing together, just more explanation of how exactly financing works, how this has been possible for me working with you guys, and what might be possible for some of you in the future as well.
Sounds good. Sounds excellent.
Okay then, welcome.
These seats are familiar.
Yep, same as in your car.
I think I want to...
Oh, you got to find the handle. It's underneath the glass.
Yeah, it's all new territory for me, Tim, I'm afraid.
For sure. Well, you're basically joining so we can talk about this topic.
Yes.
Because being a professional, you actually know what you're talking about.
Yes,
so
that's
I'm
correct.
not just kind of spouting advice to everybody out there.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But welcome to the Senna.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I think I was on the note of the Senna seats. So I've got my 600 LT with Senna seats 2 or 3 months before I've got my Senna with Senna seats. So I'm not quite sure how that works, but anyway, they're cool seats. Yeah,
pretty cool to have the two cars.
Yeah, that's it.
So I need to get myself comfortable in here as well, because I didn't actually drive it here. I drove the Ford GT here, but it is, I think, an interesting thing to talk about, certainly for my audience as well. These two cars.
Yes.
So we'll get to that, because there's a big complex story, guys, about the Porsche GT3, which basically arrived just at the time I had to pay a 50% deposit on the Ford GT.
Yes.
Which is where you guys came in.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that. For the minute though, let me put the lift system up, which unfortunately does take a while, but worth doing because we are slightly off-roading in a Senna right now. Front is going up, in fact the whole car is going up. We'll head on out, go for a short little drive, but I think to start, talking about car finance in general.
So at Harrington Finance, what we're seeing a lot at the moment is we're heavily involved in financing newer supercars. So things like McLaren 600 LTs or 488 Pista or Senna, for example. And a lot of our customers, one of the first things they want to talk about or that comes up in conversation is how much deposit they want to put down. Typically the minimum deposit is about 10%. Most of our lenders are looking at a 10% deposit minimum. And then
next big question is monthly payment. How much is the monthly payment? What sort of residual value or balloon can they get on the car? And that really is a value. So what typically happens is we'll look at the car and we'll make a decision with our lender as to how much the car is going to be worth at the end of the finance period. So a brand new Senna financed over 4 years, there's a big discussion there about what's the value of the Senna going to be in 4 years' time, and that leads into what type of residual value or balloon you can get on that car. The bigger the residual value, the bigger the balloon, the lower the monthly payment. So it becomes much easier to get into an expensive car like this.
And well, I can tell you from experience that obviously it's a very personal thing.
Yes.
Whether you put in a 10% deposit, whether you put in a 25% deposit, whether with the GT or with the Senna. For this car, for example, I had to pay, as every customer, an initial £125,000 deposit, followed by a second £125,000 deposit. So you're about a third in on the car before you even...
Correct. Well, in that example with the Senna, you've got a very, very substantial deposit or commitment to the car already at £250,000. The car's 750 list, and then with your options, over, you can take the value to over 800,000. So with a 250,000 deposit, you're talking sort of 30% of the car value there. So the deposit is very substantial. The lender's going to be very comfortable in this situation because they've got good commitment from you, the buyer of the car. So, and then it's a case of looking at something like a Senna, which is, only 500 cars worldwide, very, very desirable, very hot at the moment. And what sort of value is this car going to have in 3 and 4 years' time? Which is still pretty difficult to make a call. But I think people now realise, now these cars are getting delivered, they realise just how special they are. And the name, the Senna name, it's unique and it's going to be a one-off. So I think they've got a good feeling about this car. I've got to say that because I'm getting one as well.
Yeah,
so.
just for a small side conversation. Obviously, while you've been explaining a bit about this, you are sitting inside a moving Senna for the first time.
Yeah, this is it.
How does it feel?
Well, the first thing is you can tell there's very little, if any, sound deadening.
Yes.
You've got the engine right
that's cool.
next to you. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So yeah, lots of noise, lots of engine noise.
Let's make some more noise out of it. Still running the car in, so I can't go full pedal, but
Wow, yeah, you can really feel it.
the torque is crazy, right?
Wow. That's 3,000 revs.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I'm a little bit anxious about when it's run in.
Yeah.
We're actually going to talk a bit more about what the car is like to drive in another piece. So to discuss a bit more what we did in my situation. So many of you guys will remember, I'm sure, that I took delivery of my Porsche GT3 in March last year. And then in April, a month later, much to my surprise and about a year ahead of what I expected, I got a phone call from Ford saying, the GT is coming by the end of the year. And I went gulp, because that basically meant I had to pay a 50% upfront deposit to Ford, which was near on £300,000. And at the time, having just bought the GT3 completely outright, because I bought it in Germany, no finance on it at all, for about €200,000, that put me in a position of, what am I going to do about this? Because I'm not going to lie, I didn't have the fluidity at the time. So this is when I got in touch with you guys. We had spoken a bit about Sennas and things. Small distraction. Starting to get a few pops. I've got it in manual with Active Dynamics. I got in touch with you guys to talk about can we do this? And come summer, we put together a pretty bespoke arrangement. I think this is a big part of, I guess, what we're looking into, or what you do anyway with Harrington Finance, but also what we're looking into with Shmee150 Finance, is creating these packages for bespoke situations, because pretty much every customer of 600LTs or Sennas or whatnot has a bespoke arrangement. So with the GT, we financed, if I'm right about this, I put in a quarter, financed another quarter to make up the half up front.
That's right.
And then basically we had the 50% deposit set.
That's correct.
And then created a plan with a final residual around the car.
You're right. I think the big piece of work we had to do around the Ford GT was that Ford needed a payment in advance for the car before the car was going to arrive. And the way asset finance works and the way supercar finance works is that the supercar is the asset, is the security on the finance transaction. So in your situation,
there's no car yet. It's not even built.
Exactly, the car didn't exist, but the car was in Canada somewhere.
Yes.
And so our lender has no security, no asset in the UK, nothing to repossess. explain, get into the Ford GT car, explain what the car's being built, get everybody comfortable with this. It's quite a lot of work that we put in there at the front end. And then fortunately, we had a lender on our panel. We've got about 30 lenders at Harrington Finance. And we had a lender that was able to do this payment in advance. A lot of them wouldn't do it, it's just outside of their scope and how they underwrite a finance transaction. But we had a lender that could do it, gave us that flexibility. We were able to release the payment in advance and keep all the wheels turning, and off we go.
Yeah, and obviously for me it was a pretty big thing with the 2 cars at the same time. I know this is what a lot of my audience obviously picked up on, rightfully. I was aware of the cars, I'd been preparing long term for the cars, but it took tailoring a package and working very closely with you guys, talking about both of them and further financial planning, talking about other cars, talking about what I own in the garage, my commitments, my financing that I have with other vehicles.
Yeah, agree. So it's a really personal discussion that we had. A number of personal discussions. It's about timing. When's this car? When's the Ford GT going to arrive? When's the Senna going to arrive? And it's a case of getting the finance fully underwritten and approved, discussing the terms well in advance, so that we're presenting the figures to you, not 24 hours or 2 days before you're going to get the car, but weeks, if not months in advance. So you can start looking at the figures and start working out, what you want to do. Do you want to increase the residual value or decrease it, pay off more of the car, play around with deposits? So we were doing that well in advance. There's no stress.
No stress at all. That was absolutely what I appreciated and why we have continued this conversation to discuss what we can do on an ongoing basis, because obviously I've bought in my life to date maybe 30 or so cars. I think across the whole time, obviously financed a chunk of those. I haven't financed every car that I've owned, probably 10, 12 in total, but I've got a bit of an understanding of the industry and experience, and enjoyed the purchase of these with you, taking away what I was genuinely worried was going to be a real headache. But the way we managed to translate it with the deposits on the cars was into a package that I'm not going to sit back and say it's not expensive, because the amounts are expensive, but relative to the cars, it's actually turned out to be surprisingly affordable.
I think that's a really key point. I think a lot of people, when they look at any supercar, especially we're in a hypercar now, so we're pushing well onto £1 million, is that people look at it and go, it's unobtainable, it's out there, it's crazy. But there are finance products out there that we're able to finance, we're able to provide, where you can keep the deposit down, have a residual value that's fair and reasonable, and we can get into these cars for a much lower monthly payment than most people think.
And I don't know, I've just remembered one of our very first conversations. I'm not sure if you'll remember this, but I literally said something along the lines of, I don't know which I'm going to be able to keep and which I won't out of the GT and the Senna.
You did.
Because at the time, I knew my position, but I didn't necessarily know. I've not financed assets of this value, so I was uneasy at first about how this could possibly work. Of course, I didn't say this in the videos, guys, because that wouldn't be an exciting video, but I was very, very anxious at first.
Well, I think a lot of people would be anxious if you've got, the best part of 1.4, 1.5 million pounds worth of cars arriving
at the same time,
closely together. That's quite a sobering moment when you realise.
Yeah, the most expensive car I'd bought previously was my LT Spider, so about £340,000 list price. Completely throwing you in at the deep end by talking in depth about a complicated subject. Let's be real. While having first experience in the Senna. But I look forward to an occasion in the future where hopefully we'll be able to put it together. That's pretty awesome.
I think our Fistral Blue and your Cerulean Blue cars together are going to look
absolutely amazing. Well, a lot of this is why we've gone on to introduce the Shmee150 Finance package, which you'll find a link in the description down below, guys, if you're interested in learning more about that, which is really, I think, a package we've tried to put together for people who are in very similar shoes to me, and not just kind of now, not just financing a Senna. We're not talking about purely hypercar finance, although of course that is an option, but we're talking also about, ignore the parking sensors, the kind of path going through some nice sports cars, into baby supercars, into supercars, and up to the top end. But people with complicated schedules, complicated positions, who want a tailored bespoke package. That's the whole point. So I couldn't be happier to be working with you guys.
We're really, really excited about the partnership. It's incredible. So yeah, when you call us, we'll be able to get straight into it. You'll be able to talk about residual value straight away. We'll understand the limited production cars, and yeah, you'll get that real expert knowledge when you talk to one of our guys. So yeah, it's great.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for coming
no
along.
problem at all.
Hope you guys have found this kind of interesting and learned a little bit about the options and how it kind of works. I'm going to say a few more words about some things as well, but I appreciate it an awful lot.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks very much.
And maybe we'll have some videos with some of your cars in future.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks
for
very
coming.
much. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
I'm actually now hiding in the shade because it is far too sunny for this time of year. I can't believe it's February and I'm worried about getting sunburnt. Not that I'm complaining about that, it's a lovely day to go out for a drive, but just a bit more to think about in terms of these cars and also cars coming in the future. So I talked a bit about background. I had a good education. I got to experience and learn how to go out and work and how to have that drive to chase the dreams. And I think if you think about Shmee150 more as this whole YouTube business rather than just a YouTube channel, you might be able to relate and see how some of that actually works and how it comes together. But for me, I mean, I spend pretty much every minute of the day thinking about cars or working towards cars because these are my dream. The tagline for the channel is literally living the supercar dream, and I think, well, now with the Senna in particular, we might even be talking about the hypercar dream, which seems completely and totally bonkers. Never actually in my wildest dreams was that a real prospect or idea that might turn into reality, but somehow it has done so. And as I said, it's a big thanks to many of you guys for supporting this adventure and being with me from the early days on what's now nearly been a decade of Shmee150. Of course, there are lots of factors that play into financing: where you're based, your stage, your credit rating, your financial situation in particular, which varies so much from person to person. Here in the UK, we do have a very favourable system towards this kind of setup, if I could say, but obviously it is about having a debt on the cars that is serviceable, that is manageable. Payments per month, for example, on these are pretty strong. I'm not going to lie about it, but they're also manageable, and that's the important thing. They're within my means so that I can use the cars and not be freaking out too much about it. The one thing I do have to consider is the type of cars. You can't just throw daily driver type mileage on these cars for a number of reasons: for the cost to service them, for the cost of insurance, or even actually to get insurance in the first place. So most of the cars in my fleet are insured for the whole team, whether it's Schmark or Benzine Ben or Joe Achilles. They all drive them quite often. These two, not quite the same, due to the simply fact of the cost that's involved in the cars and any repairs should the worst happen. So it makes a day like today, taking them both out together, really quite challenging, and not just something I can kind of do all the time, unfortunately. I can't just take these cars off on road trips, as much as, believe me, I would love to do, but they will be used when they're running and they have some more miles on them. They are going to go off, they are going to be driven, but I just wanted to kind of clear up and explain a little bit more about the various cars and how I set up my own financial arrangements without going into too much detail, because of course it's a personal topic, let's be real. There's only so much that I'd like to talk about, but obviously when it comes to Shmee150 Finance, I'm very excited about working with Alex and the team at Harrington Finance to put all of that together, and for what's going to be coming in the future working with them, and also of course about the cars that I have arriving, the different cars coming that you know about already: the G63, the Toyota Supra, the TVR Griffith. I've kind of announced there is actually a fourth surprise car coming in a couple of weeks, so I'll tell you more about that very, very soon as well. That's almost a little reveal at the end of this video if you stay tuned all the way through it. But for me, this is the result of a lot of years of very, very, very hard work. It's a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie about that. It's an awful lot of fun, but the number of hours spent planning, learning, scripting, preparing, traveling, it's extreme, believe me. It's a very, very difficult job. It is basically two jobs at the end of the day, but with the opportunity to drive these, it's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And to be able to do so and not be too panicky about it. Of course, stretching things a little bit, having both cars at the same time, that wasn't in the plans. The GT was supposed to be a year later. The Senna arrived just about on time overall, actually. But crazy, crazy times. So a big thanks to Alex for coming on down. What an amazing day driving the two cars. And I'm also going to film a video talking much more about the two, back to back, and how they compare in terms of the driving, the actual drive of the two cars. Two cars that do quite a similar thing, but do it in very, very different ways. If you're interested in a financing package through Shmee150 Finance, you'll find all the details and a link in the description down below to head over and look into that a little bit more. That's it for now though. Thank you very much for watching, guys. guys, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.